Okay, so this is just a small video looking at how to compile a social media audit. Now, I must say that there is a degree of change to this, but hopefully this will give a pretty good starting point of which to work from, which we can adapt over time. So this here is what it will look out like, what it will look like in the start, sorry, at the end. But it all starts with the BuzzSumo. So in BuzzSumo, what I would just recommend that you do is go onto the Influencers tab, type in your keyword that you might want to do. So let's just take, in this case, sausages. Let's see what comes up with sausages. You then got to look at the filter by type. So I would always go for bloggers, influencers. You can opt into companies if you want to. So let's do it in this case because I think it's still, especially on a B2B bit, it's still quite important. Journalists and regular people, you want these guys. You want the active influencers, and you want you want to opt that in to ignore broadcasters. And then if you want to, you can sort of be specific to a location. Play around with this so that you get a decent number. Anything really between sort of 2 and 10 pages are ideal, because then you know you're getting a good load of people. What you also want to try to do, you want to try and restrict it by time, but I don't think we can. But I'll come on to that in a second. So do location and then apply the filters. And what you'll find is it'll then filter this down to 29. If I, for example, typed in here United Kingdom, I think you'll find that it will dramatically reduce it. Yeah, so there's only one. So you can really refine this down. I don't know if you can do Europe. Let's have a look, see if you can do Europe. See what that comes up with, see if that's any different. No, so it looks as if it's got to be blank or dependent on the phrase. You know, if it's a really popular phrase, you can probably get right down to like London. But in this case, I'm just going to apply all filters. You've also got this option here to run an advanced search. So you could do sort of lots more very specific sort of options in here to do bacon, for example. And what you just need to do is you'd need to pop in here quote marks, for example, and this is what's called an exact phrases, so you can actually do that. Or I believe you can just put in here commas as well if you want more, or just do a search, you know, it doesn't really matter. So in this case, let's just go with sausages for now, and we'll search it out, obviously, which we've done, so we've got 29. Now, once you've done the search, you've then got the option here to save the search for future, because obviously you can always go back to it, or you can export them to a CSV file, which is always good. It doesn't take that long to produce. But the point is, once you've done that, you've then got an Excel file, which will look something similar to this. It's quite comprehensive. There's a lot of data in here, which ultimately you don't need, but I'll come on to that in a second. So once you've run the report, then go into the Master of Influencer Outreach Social Media Audit. And what this does is it pulls key components of that Excel sheet, which you can see here, into a more organized format that we can use. So first thing to do is go into File and go to Make a Copy. And copy the Master Influencer. You want to call it, let's say, Sausage Influencer and Thingy. Go into the master copies and click back a couple of times. So you go into the client folders and basically find that client folder that you're in. So I'll put it in archive for now. Sausage Influencer, I'm just going to put it in here so I know, obviously. And what this now does is it replicates completely all of this spreadsheet to over here. Now, what I have noticed previously, oh, it does on this one, that's good. Okay, so it does just double check that it pulls across all the equations. And there's only equations in the orangey sort of area and the bluey area. But as long as that's doing that, now interestingly, that hasn't pulled that across, but there's a reason for that, I think. So we'll just double check that. But what we just need to be doing here is the first point is make sure these have been carried across, these equations. They're the most important, and they will be relevant to the last. They'll be relevant to this actually, this spreadsheet, which we're all going to be replacing. So what we've now got to do is look at the columns. So we've got in here the Twitter names. So you'll go into the Twitter handles, and what you'll do is you'll copy and you'll just paste it over, and just do that across the various different ones that you've got. So take the bio from here, obviously we've got the bio, so you can take that down and take that over, and just pop that in. Now, interesting, so once you've done that, leave this section alone for now, and you can leave the blue bit alone for now. What you need to do is you need to come across to these ones here. So you want to get the domain authority. So you go to the domain authority here, which is here, and so number 1 to 10, and again you want to copy that over to this bit. So sorry, this is the only blue one that you need to make the change to. Number of followers. So basically, just repeat all of what you've done before. But if you notice here for a second, as soon as I change this one, you'll see all of these have just changed. But that doesn't mean this is right, and I'll come on to that in a minute. So number of followers, and you just go across here. So you've got number of followers, you've got the URL, ignore this one for now, reply ratio and retweet ratio and location. So copy and paste across. Now, the point here with these blue ones is you have to what's called normalize. You have to make sure that they've all got a common metric, because if you compare 337,000 followers against domain authority of 100, it's not a fair calculation when you're looking at ratios. It doesn't work. So you've got to normalize each of them to 100 so we can actually build out a proper ratio. So the first thing to do is organize this and sort it according to size. So we've now got 337,000 according to size. You've then got to go across to your followers, normalized, and you'll see here this is J2 divided by 5,000. That is only because the last one was 500,000 to get it to 100. So in this case, I'm going to do it at approximately 37,000. It's come to 9, so I've gone 1 0 too many, so I'm just going to knock a 0 off there. It's come to 91, so actually I probably need, this is where you just got to play around, so 89, so I've actually got to go the other way. So if I do 3,500, it's gone up in the right way. I'm just going to go up to 300 there. So I'm going to do 600. What was I? 3. I'm going to go to 3, 4. There we go. That's close enough. So then once you've done that and you've got it pretty much on 100, you then just need to drag it all the way down. All right, as far as you need to go. Then if you come to the replies normalized, again, you need to do a similar thing. So you need to go across to the reply ratio here, and you just need to organize that according to the highest, which is 100 in this case. So that is fine. So in this case, I would normally just copy and paste this over to the reply ratio side and copy that in. Same with the retweets. So retweet ratio, I'd go into here, I would normalize that. Now, that's only going to 49. So in this case, I would go equals this one times by 2. And it gets it to pretty much 100. And again, as that's been times by 2, we'll times the rest of them. So it will do a comparative study. Now, by doing all of that, you'd have then seen that all of these numbers will be changing because these are an equation which is basically ranking all of these squares, and it puts it into a ratio. Now, these numbers aren't correct because that ratio isn't copied into these cells because of the because they're much further down. So if I bring this in, you'll see now, as I've just reordered it, you'll see that the actual equation is at the top one. So when you've got all of your figures in here, just drag this all the way down so that we're going to get, however many you've got in, and you'll see that this is still kept the equation in and it's going on these figures that you've brought in. Now, what you want to do is, there's also probably, because of some clients, we might be looking at maybe 4 or 5 different keywords. So we might be looking at, a client with sort of different client types, different, it's almost like search terms. You want to have, you may want to insert a column in here left and actually have this being called search term. All right, so this might be, let's say, sausages, but I might have run the same query, so these might all be sausages. you might have run the same query for bacon, and then that you just have for bacon. So you know you've got the different sorts of clients for each keyword. And then the point from this is that you're then able to reorder according to the engagement. And actually, it might be better to do sausages on one sheet and then copy it all over and do another sheet with bacon on it. Once you've done that, then it gives you the ability to build out, let's say, the top 50 who are in sausages, and actually put them out as sausages list for engagement, and the same one for amplification, and the same one for influencer. So for each term, you've probably got 3 different lists for Twitter to build out really interesting lists for you to either engage with, amplify, or reach out for possible SEO purposes. So engagement is obviously about people who are naturally engaging, always replying to you. Amplification is going to be people that you want to copy into tweets that you can publicize when you've got some news and you want them to amplify that content, so you can copy them into a picture, for example, on Twitter. And influencer, as I said, it's all about that. Now, the one thing I will say finally is once you've done all of this, it's really important just to manually sense check the 75 that you may have picked, because certainly in some of these I've found, they don't actually relate to the term that we're looking at in the first place. So always be just a little bit careful on that, because it does mean that there may be some irrelevant accounts in here, which just when you look at it and you sense check it, you realise they've got nothing to do with it. And it may be that it's the Daily Mail has mentioned sausages at some point. It's just not relevant. So remove them, and that means that another influencer is going to pop up into the top 75. So yeah, I hope that helps.